You back. I would like to call up Brett Hemphill next and give him an opportunity to share a little bit of his experience with you. I've asked Brett to talk about exploration and some of the weird things that have happened to him and some of the pet peeves and visions that he has for the future of rebreathers. So please help me welcome Brett.
Hey everybody, thanks for coming out today. My name's Brett Hemphill. I'm going to talk a little bit about exploration today. In the past rebreather summits, it's always been thrown back at me when I say things or come up with things that I found diving rebreathers. They go, well Brett, that works for exploration, but we're not talking about exploration, we're just talking about rebreather diving. And my reply at that time is every time somebody gets on a rebreather, they're exploring. Every time they jump off the gold line and experiencing a part of a new cave or a new system or a new boat, you're an explorer. So to narrow that field and say, well, he's an explorer and I'm not an explorer, in my opinion, I just don't think it's fair. Anytime you see something new or experiencing something new, you're exploring. And the question that I am going to pose today, it's difficult for me to focus my thoughts, so I actually brought notes today, is how we react when we explore. In our basic open water certification, we learn things that become protocols. It takes time for those things to happen, which basically means you react a certain way to a certain stimuli. In cave diving, here's a real good one for everybody, and you don't have to answer out loud. If we're scootering through the cave and we smash our first stage into the ceiling and a catastrophic air loss begins, and let's just say we're not on mainline and Ginny with 100 foot of visibility, what is the first thing we do?
Walk the line.
Get on the line. You were at breakfast, Steve. You're cheating. Get on the line and then manage the air loss. I lost a good, not lost, he's not cave diving anymore because of that reason. We were in a cave. It was a coastal cave. It was siphoning, and we were way off the line, and we had to go through a section where the first guy went through first. The planned protocol, and memorized protocol. That's what I'm going to be talking about today. The planned protocol was for Rudy to go through the restrictive area and wait on the other side where the environment was suitable. Diver 2 would meet up with him there, and Diver 3 would come. Well, Diver 2 got in the middle of the restrictive gigantic bedding plane with horrible silt and had this catastrophic air loss, and while he was managing it up on the ceiling, he drifted way off the line. Diver 3, who was me, went through the zero visibility and came out to find diver 1 on the other side. And at that point, obviously, we found diver number 2. Everybody was okay, but it was a pretty exciting dive because of that protocol. And a lot of people will talk about fatalities and things that happen, and some of the stuff that I've talked about over the years. When you go to get rebreather training, your instructors are vying. They're believing that when you leave their class, you're going to have protocol. At what point does that protocol become memorized, and what point is it planned? How long were we cave divers before we knew how we were going to react to certain stimuli? How we knew we were going to react when our light went out, and how fast it took us to get to our backup light, all depending on what environment we were in when that occurred. Were we on the main line? Were we in a horrible silt trap and stuff like that? And those types of protocols, they step down to every portion of the dive. So when you're planning an exploration dive, the first thing you need to do is have a goal. Now, a lot of instructors will say goals are bad, but today we're not talking about regular diving, we're talking about exploration. Have a goal, but recognize that it is but one of the components of the exploration dive. The goal is just a component. The goal is not something that basically tells you we've got to get to this goal or the whole dive falls apart. And then basically you have planned protocols. So everybody understands the difference between a planned protocol and a memorized protocol. And in not my opinion, I can't say my opinion, what I've seen time and time again, regardless of whether or not it's CO2 or oxygen toxicity or someone having to bail off a loop, is people in today's society, money buys technology, and there's not mentoring. When I started, I was swimming to 4,000 feet before I ever dreamed about getting a scooter. There's a point in every person, cave diving, they keep upping this percentage. How many of you have heard this? Cave diving is 80% mental and 20% physical, or 95. How many people have heard that? Well, the question is how many of us know how we're going to act physically to stimuli in a cave? It's like holding your hand over a flame and someone going, don't move it, don't move it. How are you going to act? So when you leave a rebreather training, your instructor is inviting, in some cases your instructor may have military experience. And he's saying, well, I've trained him the best I can. But how long will that memorized protocol, how long will that take to come into your system? Tom Mount says a lot of great things over the years, but the one thing that I picked up from him, and I've really done a lot of research on, is how our brains work. When we are on a computer, how many people have a computer? And a guy jumps out of the closet with a knife and tries to kill us. Are we thinking about the computer anymore? Are we calculating how we're going to remove the knife from his hand and put him on the floor? If you're Tom Mount, maybe you're thinking about how you're going to touch him with the finger and paralyze him. But our mind switches to survival mode. But that's a very narrow word, survival. People are like, well, when I'm in a cave, I'm not in survival mode. But anytime we experience something new, aren't we in survival mode? Really? In a bedding plane, our buddy does something, he breaks the line, his scooter fails. Suddenly your brain is operating from a side that has nothing to do with operating a computer. And that's when you have to ask yourself one question. Are those computer skills that go along with electronic rebreathers, are those memorized now? Are they memorized protocol? Or are they planned protocol? And how you're going to react and stuff. So I don't want to get on that. Let's see. Complacency, of course, complacency plays into that. So that was it. I drew a face of a person, and one side it says memorized protocol, spans on both sides. Once you really memorize something, it does work unilaterally across how you train things. Now, exploration diving, obviously, as Steve was saying, decompression is a huge part. Pick a goal, and throughout the dive, if it was a linear dive, let's just say it was from here to the other side of the river, and we had a three-man team. Make planned protocols. Say, during the dive, if something happens to you or we lose each other, here's a marker. I'm going to put this marker on the line. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. So and just make sure, once again, there's a goal, but that goal never supersedes the protocols that you set up during that dive. And break down that dive. It's decompression. How cold's the river water? Are you using a heated jacket? Exploration dives. Have enough open circuit gas, obviously, to get out of the cave, but in my opinion, if you're exploring, have enough open circuit gas to get out of the cave and handle additional problems. Everyone knows the rule of thirds. Well, if you just have enough gas to get out of the cave, what happens when you have a problem after you've bailed out? You break the line. As Jill said, normally when that happens, we have a problem anyways. If we're bailing out to open circuit gas, we're already breathing hard and things are going wrong. Once again, this is exploration. Nobody can tell me this here. Well, this is exploration. This isn't diving to the Hemphill today. So, on dives like an eagle's nest, we plant the gas. It is enough gas for one rebreather diver, up to 3, to get completely out of the cave. And of course, each one of us have a tremendous amount of bailout gas on those deeper dives. I'll dive like a press steel 121 with a very, very adequate amount of gas to get out and stuff. So, exploration, once again, and it just depends. Now I'm getting scrambled. Sorry, everybody. Problem start, past recollection versus exploration, renovation. I think that's about it, really. And we got a lot to go through and stuff. But if anybody has any questions about that, environment, that's it. Just always be aware of one thing. Plan your exploration dive, but know how you're going to react when the environment changes. Even if that's when things go wrong and things start to deteriorate, or when you get to the end of the line. Because believe it or not, I've seen people in the water who are rock solid. And you drop those scooters, and you break out those reels, and the next thing you know, it's... And they're with the reel and the line. So, and visualize. Most important thing you can do on any dive, visualize. Visualize the dive. How am I going to react? What am I going to do? And so, that's really about it. I could talk about it all day long, but I got to keep it 5 minutes. No, just joking.
Thanks, Brett. And I thought you were going to tell some stories, horror stories.
Everyone's heard those.
Although one of the coolest little anecdotes that Brett told before was about a day that he ripped the mouthpiece off his loop. Now, this is all high technology, and you think, God, I spent $10,000-12,000 on his stuff, and then here I am relying on this little rubber mouthpiece that like tears, and now I have a catastrophic loop failure. And so he's carrying an extra mouthpiece on a clip to replace it. I just thought that was a really
I
cool
think every breeder
anecdote.
horse should be in water, loop shut down, and swap out a mouthpiece. The rubber mouthpiece is just as much a part of the rebreathing loop as the hose or the counter loop.
Yeah, it's interesting.